Hey, developers. Today I have a really cool interview with Ricky Garcia. He actually has his own YouTube channel, and we discuss how he became a developer. He's completely self-taught, and his journey through this all. So I think you guys will really enjoy this. It's a really interesting story. I think a lot of people can relate. So make sure you watch all the way to the end, and without further ado, let's talk to Ricky.
Hey, Ricky, thanks for giving us some of your time today. I'd like to talk to you about your career. I know you are a web developer and you've done quite a few things. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's been super crazy. This past year has been a whirlwind. I never thought I would be going through so much quote unquote success, as they say.
Well, that's awesome. Can you explain a little bit of your background? How did you get into web development? What's maybe like a little mini story of how that happened?
So I got my bachelor's degree in economics from Idaho State University. I wanted to go do something like a Goldman Sachs. That didn't work out. So I went to a local credit union and I took the first job I could, which was called an e-services specialist. So the online products, and I made like $12.50 an hour. And I stayed there for a little over 2 years. But during that time, I applied for like 7 different jobs in the actual like company and marketing or like even like loan processing. And they're just like, nope, you're either overqualified or you're not qualified enough. But during this time, I was looking at the types of jobs I want. Marketing was one of them. And they wanted you to have like graphic design, HTML, CSS. And so I started learning those. The funny thing is we went from a 2-person team to like a full department. So it went from being like overwhelmed to not very much work. so taking any books I could to read them there, any of that I would do and fill my time and then do it after work, just obsess and just try to do as much as I could so I could get into marketing or something else. And it wasn't just like coding. It was graphic design, social media, marketing, learning a lot about these things. That's how a lot of us get these YouTube channels, right? Looking at someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, and they all like intertwined. So my background starting, it wasn't like the traditional, web development, go learn the HTML, CSS. It kind of was like a bunch of things all together. And when I really started learning, though, is when I got on Treehouse, Team Treehouse. And I'm not sponsored by them. But hey, if you want to sponsor me, Treehouse, go ahead and let me know. So that's how I got started. I made like a WordPress site for my DJ business, and it was okay, but it was frustrating. And that's my first, I guess, project I had. And from there, I started getting into the Udacity nanodegree, which was a front-end nanodegree. And I was doing it after work, putting in a lot of time, but it got to the point where it's like, well, I'm not moving anywhere at this company, and this nanodegree, I'm about halfway done, and it's getting pretty serious. So I left my job and pursued web development for 5 months. But I was, prepared to do that. From
Wait,
there,
let's take a stop there and let's deconstruct that for a second. So you said you were on this job, you had a job, wasn't exactly what you're looking for. So you had quit it and became a full-time freelance web developer for 5 months?
full-time student for about 5 months.
Mm.
Yeah, but I saved the money up to make sure that I could do it. Because at the time, I was living at my parents' house. I thought, I'm not going anywhere with this job. I put in a lot of time here. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like I'm pretty much quote unquote at the bottom. So there was this unique opportunity. I did think about it a lot. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to do this. And I had like about 7 months or maybe 5 to 7 months of experience doing this. So it wasn't like I just quit, and I just decided I'm going to be a web developer. There was a lot of thought into it. And so that's really been probably my most valuable asset, even as a web developer, thinking strategically and weighing the risk.
When you spent those 5 months, were you just doing the Udacity nano degree, or
No.
were you just doing a ton of things?
Yes. And so with my channel, if you don't know, I have a bunch of reviews on a lot of online learning platforms. I went to Udacity, but if I couldn't find the information online, I went to any course and every course that I could find and like took every single thing until I could put the application or the project together. So Pluralsight, Treehouse, Udemy, Skillshare. I have no loyalties. YouTube, I'll go wherever and find that. So I did as many as I could. and then I think I did a little bit of books, but at that time, it was kind of new. For some reason, for me, it was just easier to go through online courses. But now I'll do blogs, Stack Overflow, whatever.
What? Let's one more question on this. You said you really like Team Treehouse. Was that your favorite out of all of them?
Absolutely, and even to this day, and they're the ones that I've used the least. But when you're starting from absolute scratch, and you don't have like a technical background, they make it easy, and they make you feel good about yourself. They start, from very basics. Don't assume that you know anything, and they gamify it. You get points and badges, and it's fun. It is actually fun and enjoyable, even if sometimes the stuff isn't too technical. But that's how it's supposed to be. You're learning. If you're starting from like ground zero, I did a lot of that where I was just like HTML, CSS is pretty easy. I haven't gone back there since like maybe 2015, 2016. So things may have changed, but at that time, just like write this out. Cool. We have this online editor. Cool. I don't have to like do all this extra stuff to make it work.
Yeah. All I've heard is good stuff about Team Treehouse. I know that a couple of other YouTubers really enjoy Team Treehouse as well.
Yeah.
And so does that when your YouTube started?
No, actually, I started way before that. I kind of got to back up a little bit here. At the local credit union that I was at, I did online training with Microsoft products. I got certified in Outlook and started training them, and I made my first video on how to learn like Microsoft Office. And that's when I first got into it. I got the knack. I thought, I can make a skill. This is probably good for my career, or just, something to have as a cool hobby. But to be honest, I always thought of it in a career way. And so I was looking for reviews on Udemy, and there weren't any. And so I just made one. So that's how I started like taking off. It was kind of funny because like one of my first or second videos, and it's still like my third most popular video. And I just, from there, I made a bunch of reviews about them, and I got a new one on Udemy actually that just came out, and started documenting my progress. So that's the big thing for me.
So you did this 5 months sabbatical, and then what happened next?
I saw a job in where I lived in Pocatello for a social media manager / WordPress developer. Really weird, but because I'd been doing YouTube and blogging, and I had one social media client to do my graphic design and marketing on, they hired me. And so I did a few WordPress sites and a lot of social media, which actually helped a ton with my YouTube experience and analytics. And so I just stayed there for about 8 months doing like agency work. And I had a bunch of clients, and I still worked on the side making a portfolio site, redesigning the portfolio site, doing some more projects, and posting them to my GitHub. And then I applied for a job.
At that point at the social media company, were you actually doing web development, or was it more just like updating people's Twitter feeds or whatever you do at social media company?
It was in between. It's like mostly social media. Oh, and then this social media client also wants a WordPress site. And so I do that. So it was a lot more CMS, content management system stuff, and then with some custom HTML and CSS. Okay. And so that did not happen often. I think I did maybe 4 or 5 WordPress sites.
So not enough to feel like you're getting enough web development programming knowledge that you would need to level up, I guess.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, it was great to be in that space, to see the content management system, to just be in there. You get familiar with how a website looks and interacting with like text and images, but it wasn't, this is JavaScript. Like, I think I maybe did like one jQuery, thing, and wrote out a little like jQuery function, but that was it. It was mostly HTML, CSS, but really, you learn about the site, how like the site layout is or site architecture. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And then I got a job in Idaho Falls. I applied for, and they saw my stuff. They liked it, and they did look at my LinkedIn articles. That played a big role into deciding to bring me on.
What LinkedIn articles did you write?
I just wrote about my Udacity experience and what I was going through. Performance was a big one. And it wasn't just all web development. Like, some was like how to make a great LinkedIn profile. And that was a big one that they liked. So things like that.
So I know Dylan, both of our friend Dylan from Coding Tutorials 360, he had gone this route of learning to be a web developer without having any formal computer science education or anything like that, although he did go to school a little bit and then dropped out. And he talked about how he literally, I think, sent hundreds of resumes out, maybe even thousands at one point. He was literally a pizza delivery kid before he kind of made his way from job to job until he finally found a full-time web development job. Did you have any problems where you had to send out hundreds of resumes, or did you already have the experience because you had the YouTube channel and these LinkedIn articles and other things that?
Yes, that's one of those things that you kind of like try to black out. But yeah, absolutely. I didn't even really think about it, but I did send out a lot, especially for that first one. That first one was kind of tough. Just getting into, someone give you a job without like zero experience. But the biggest hurdle to get past that is if you can find like a mom and pop shop, and even if you have to do it for free, you got to look at it as continuing your education. They're taking a risk on you. They're putting their name on there. And that's what I did. Now, if you can get paid, even better, and you should. But that's how I found my way around not getting that, and that gave me a little bit more to my resume and my portfolio. And then getting the next front-end developer position was also hard too. I applied for a bunch of places. I got some good calls. The one was for the newspaper, actually, here, ironically, and another one was for Scotty Vest, which was on Shark Tank. So
I have one of their vests.
Yeah. So and I just found out like where I was and where I wasn't. And then this one in Idaho Falls, I called them, had an interview. It took me 2 months to get hired on there, but I did eventually, and that took a while. So those first two took a very long time. And then
do you have any tips for interviewing? Places?
Yeah, I have a lot.
Just like one or two.
Sure. The first thing is always have a reference to whatever you talk about. Easier said than done. But if you say, I know X, Y, and Z, if you have a reference that you can bring up, that is huge. And I never thought about it, but it's definitely a great selling point. Like if you have a product, demo the product. So we're getting into sales here, but I have my phone here, and then we talk about like, oh yeah, I have like a Next React website. So I have it on my phone, and it's like a progressive web app. You see the progressive web app there. I click it, it pulls it up, and there it is. Wow. And I can walk through it. And so that's like a technique. Now, do I expect you to have it that well written out? No, but you better have your like website on hand. And if you say you can do responsive websites, pull up on your phone.
Oh, wow. So like in the middle of an interview, you would, if they ask you like a responsive question or like something you've done in the past, then you'll actually like pop up your phone and say, hey, this is my website. Here's responsive. This is written in Next.
Yeah.
Well, you have like Express in the back end or something? Or?
Yep. Express and Node, or like if they're like, hey, can you tell us about like UX and what did you think? So I said like, here's a static nav. So not static, a sticky nav. So it sticks there.
Sticky nav. Yep.
Yeah. But if I have it like in landscape mode, that's a lot of real estate. So I thought not a lot of people are using vertical media queries, but I do.
Oh, wow.
So, things like that. And that's a huge selling point. The other thing is always try to reflect on how you can bring value to the company. So if they are asking you a question, you don't just say, yeah, this is what I've done, but you also bring it back to this is what I can do for you. So, if you've ever thought of a difficult time that you had to deal with a difficult coworker or something like that, say, like there was this one time X, Y, and Z, I've done this, and I'm sure that, that happens at every job. But if I was in this position here, this is what I would do. You're already kind of giving them that picture of you already being in this position. You're already trying to, give them the thought, okay, this person is in this position now. And that usually helps a lot when I can do that. At least
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I've done actually maybe like a dozen interviews, interviewing people. And it's funny that there's so many people that it looks like they just haven't thought about common sense things like you're talking about. Maybe put yourself in their shoes, like see what you can do for the company is a great tactic. But even just rehearsing some common questions, when you're able to answer things. I've interviewed people that you could just tell like they're not prepared at all. I've had people come in late to interviews. which is a bad sign. And then one thing that I usually just give bonus points for this, because there's a lot of developers who don't have this. But when I ask about side projects, I've seen so many people that kind of a blank stare, like, well, I kind of sort of have this side project that I did 2 years ago that I did for my wife, and it was this website, but like they literally don't have.
Right. They haven't thought about presenting it like it's selling. It is the way
Or
that
they have no side project at all, really.
Yeah,
I mean, so many people have nothing. Like they don't even have a GitHub.
that's insane. But I mean, when you're coming from the self-taught route, you kind of have to make up for that, for not having a degree. And the projects are definitely a big selling point. But like you said, rehearsing is probably like the number one thing you can do. And just rehearsing different answers. Like they'll come up. And like if you do enough interviews, I've done like in the past 2 years, gosh, at least 30 or more. Yeah, because I mean, you think about the first interview, then the second interview, and third. I've done a lot of them, which is insane, and I don't recommend it. But I would take them because they were an opportunity to do this theater, and sell yourself. Even if I wasn't sure I wanted the company, especially in the beginning, it let me practice and practice and practice. You can practice by yourself. You can write these down. You think about the questions, or like you go through an interview. Always take it as a learning experience. What did I say wrong? What could I have said differently? And then actually think it through in your head and say it out loud, or talk with someone like your friend and say, man, I should have done this X, Y, Z, or practice with your friend. That's huge as well. I think that's probably the best way you can become prepared, is just do it over and over, just like you would do a script or a play, which is kind of weird to think of it like that. But it's how I think of interviews now.
Did you keep track of the interview questions, or did you see patterns after a while?
Yeah.
Or did you write them down in a notebook? Or
No, I did so many that I just knew like ones that are common. Explain a difficult situation, a project, something that's failed in the past. What do you do to stay current on technologies? Explain what makes you different than any other developer. What's another one that I hear? Just describe some of your projects. Describe how you interact with others. Like these are like across the board, you're going to find at least 90% of those.
Did you, I know you, so the stack that you're working on now is React, I'm guessing, right?
That's the stack that I know. With my NDA, with my company, I can't talk too much about it, but it is, we're migrating. I can tell you that we're migrating. So
cool. Well, just in general for React itself, did you have, like in the interviews you've done, did you have like common questions, tech questions on React? Like where you asked the promise? Like I know a lot of people ask like, what is promises? Or can you name, I don't know, like do a fizz buzz on a whiteboard, or it's probably not as common as some other
I know
things.
it's weird because they drill algorithms in your head, and like fizz buzz is not as common as you would think. I don't think I've had it in one interview, but but it is super important to learn, I think, just to learn the basics of JS. With React, what are props? What is like, what is the state? Some ES6 stuff like promises came up. Components. So
Did
very
they
big.
ask you React lifecycle questions, I'm guessing?
Yeah. Component will mount, did mount. I mean, come on. Like, I think component will mount and did mount is really
The ones most people use.
Yeah, but they did ask some of that, but it's only been for a couple. Most of them were like take-home challenges. So like, do this take-home challenge in React, recreate this form, or modify this code. It was like a HTML5 canvas code. So it was
Did
like,
any of the companies not have a take-home test and just ask you the technical questions then?
yeah, the one that I'm at now. But it was more like, common things that you would do with in web development, like modifying data from like an AJAX call. But
That's what like the take-home tests were about?
no, that was actually live, like on the spot.
Wow. Okay.
So, and then like modify it, or what if you change this, that, and the other. And now it's not like I don't exactly know. I could ask my interviewer questions, look up things, but you just had to be ready at all times. So the take-home tests were more relaxed, but they definitely took a lot more time. And the actual, like, I actually prefer the ones on the fly, to be honest, because you can show what you know and what you don't know. Like one of them would just like, some of them are gotchas, like a triple equals this or that. But I don't know. I think it's just because I get it out of the way, and I've done a lot of practice talking and thinking through my stuff. So it puts me in a better light rather than just saying, here's some code. Hopefully you like it, and they could be like, why did you do that? And you can't explain yourself. So I prefer that. And then there's also pre-qualification ones too, like multiple choice. So some Indeed um, applications that you fill out in Indeed will ask for like some pre-qualifying stuff.
I've always thought like one day if I'm bored that I should just start, and I'm really happy with the job I am at now, but just like try to find all these online places where people do these online tests and sign up for all of them just so I could go through them and just practice, because it seems like that would be handy one day in case something ever happened.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, about the job security, all of that. I totally agree. Once you find a job that's secure, but even then, as developers, it's tempting because everyone wants to take you away. But I think it's just a great skill to have in general, learning how to communicate. And what better motivator than interviews, right? And so it's not just for me anyway. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to do this, but if I learn how to do it in an interview, at least I'll have that one less stress thing to do, and I can carry it over to work or just something like that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of web developers, especially in the web development, and if you're in the hot spots in the Bay Area or New York or Austin or Seattle, it's like 2 or 3 years seems to be the limit of most developers. They end up jumping jobs because it's just the market's so hot.
Mm-hmm.
And the economy is doing so well, they're paying well for developers,
Right.
especially ones that have any experience. So wrapping this back around to the beginning when we started, you said this was kind of a crazy year. So is that because that tie back into the new job then?
Oh yeah, for sure. A year ago, I was working at that company in Idaho Falls that we talked about, that first one. And I would always send out resumes just to stay sharp, always keep on the job market to see what skills were hot, and then continually learning. It was a lot because I knew that I was at the very bottom, so I didn't stop learning. Put in my 40 hours and put in 20 to 25 hours of studying, and then put in some YouTube too. It was quite the year. But I got a offer from a different job in what's called Blackfoot, a small town, and then the company I was at counter offered. But then I had a recruiter reach out to me in Portland. And I was like, I don't want that job, but I'll take it because the money's too good. And so I just put out a bunch of resumes and got the job where I'm at now in Boise, technically currently at now. Took that one over this one. And then I had a recruiter reach back out to me in Idaho Falls, and I took that job. But it's really about developers need to think about their personal branding. And this is how this really happens. It doesn't happen instantaneously. It does take some time to work up. But if you learn about sales funnels, practicing these things, design, complementary skills, you can use it for more than just like freelance web development. It's about presenting yourself in the best light so you can get the best package for yourself. And it's not about how many people you're in front of, but what people, are they the right people, and are you presenting yourself well? So for me, my resume colors match my portfolio colors. It's online, it's progressive, it has all the new stuff, and I have a YouTube channel that also matches the same colors. LinkedIn, that's the biggest thing I see that a lot of developers don't do. They just solely rely on their skills.
That's great. Yeah, I think there's a whole skill base of how to market yourself as a developer, how to stand out from the crowd. Even for people that have had years of experience, it's still good to have that in your back, portfolio. Definitely, since I've been writing books, I have had many more opportunities at many companies. Many big companies have reached out to me, and probably like you too. Once you start getting sort of jobs in and getting some experience in the industry, you get a lot of people coming to you, and I think the quality goes up more, like higher your brand is, and more things that you've done.
Right. It's just like, think about it. Like, they're going to hire you on. A lot of people don't have a ton of stuff to show off what they've done. It's kind of like an insurance for the company themselves. Like, they can go back and see what you've done, see who you are. And that's like, okay, we know a lot about this person before we even interviewed them, and we can make a more informed decision.
I will say one thing, though, that even if you do have tons of experience and you do have a pretty good portfolio and you have a good brand, most companies, not all, but most companies are still going to make you go through the rigmarole of the take-home tests and maybe a whiteboarding interview, and I guess that's a good thing because, I have interviewed people that definitely didn't know everything that they should have known. And you sometimes don't get that unless you actually kind of dive into actually having them do things.
Absolutely. It just gives you more opportunities to be looked at, but it doesn't always help you, like, skip your stuff. You got to know your stuff still, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Ricky. Is there some places people can reach you at, your YouTube channel, things like that?
Sure. Yeah. My YouTube channel, just look up Ricky Garcia, web developer. It's pretty simple. Or if you look at any of these courses or these online platforms like Pluralsight or Udemy, you can just type the word review afterwards, and one of my videos will pop up.
Awesome. Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah, no problem. See ya.